Lawbries and Gentlegrams, in today's episode of Lawbry in Gentleland, I want to know if you give a damn when I spit a slam poetry jam in the intro of the videos I make for the Rapaholics fam, or should I stop calling the crop top Canadian Katy Perry petition padre these nefarious nicknames? Drop a like and subscribe and let me know if I should stop or double down on the intros with the alliterations and the rhymes. Now, Lawbries and Gentlegrams, we got a lot to get into today. More stealing, more spiraling, more sensitivity from the sad boy stunt double of the sexy red stepsister. So, he's got that song that goes, is it Keisha? Is it Akademiks? He should add in, is it my ghostwriter? Did I write this song or did I steal this song like the other 8 million songs that I stole? Because I am Lawbry, the lyric latching lunatic. Yeah, I was kidding. Love them or hate them, I'm not stopping with the nicknames. Yeah, but we got another one today, Lawbries and Gentlegrams. So just last week or 2 weeks ago maybe, time flies these days. Or Lawbry losses every day. But yeah, about 2 weeks ago, an alleged reference track came out for an old Drake song, a very old Drake song, 5 a.m. in Toronto. It's about a 12-year-old song. But yeah, these reference tracks are dropping out of the sky faster than Lawbry could drop a ducklit mirror selfie. But we will try to be as fair as possible to Drake in this video. So many people were speculating that that reference track for 5 a.m. in Toronto was written by an artist named Chapo, aka Live Moolah. Then we see today that allegedly his DMs with Drake leaked. I say allegedly because I only saw OVHO propaganda accounts post this screenshot, but we're going to review it all the songs Drake allegedly stole, and we'll try to defend him as best we can, while also clowning on him as comically as we can. So you could see in this alleged screenshot that would have had to have actually come from Drake, because if these were really messages that Chapo, aka Live Moolah, was sending to Drake, as you'll see in a second, the recipient of these DMs, the one who's taking the screenshot, would have had to be Drake. I haven't heard Drake actually come out and say this is from his account, but basically, the guy who's accused of being the ghostwriter for the song 5 a.m. in Toronto, if these screenshots are true, it shows that back in 2016, it looks like he never actually interacted with Drake before, saying, OG, I would love to work, man. You're an inspiration to the younger generation. You probably won't read this, but I got a link in my bio. Would be honored if you even watched. Then he sent some other DMs throughout 2019. And of course, if these are real, Drake had never actually responded to this guy. So unless Drake got ghostwriters that he literally doesn't even know about or interact with, they just concoct him songs and he raps them, then if this is true, this guy didn't actually write the song and he's never interacted with Drake. And I did say in my last video covering this whole thing, like, I would find it very strange if someone who didn't really know Drake personally wrote the timestamp records, because they're usually very reflective on Drake's life, where he's kind of at that period of time. But that's just one instance. I've covered on multiple other videos, so we won't get into it too deep, but the whole Some Sexy Sleepy Songs For You album was biting multiple different artists. First, the cover art itself was taken in front of the Absolute World Towers, commonly known as the Marilyn Monroe Towers, in Mississauga, Ontario. And just about a day after they released the album cover, a local Toronto artist by the name of John Rivers, who had shot a music video behind those same towers, said he was the inspiration behind that album cover. PARTYNEXTDOOR had reached out to him to get some work done and told him that the music video where John is in front of those two towers was a huge inspiration to Party. Of course, they never ended up working. They ended up using those same towers for their album cover, and John noted that it was a little strange that Party reached out specifically citing those two towers and then used them later for his own cover art with Drake. Then we saw Freddie Gibbs also point out some strange similarities, because the album title was spelt with $3 signs. Freddie Gibbs 2 years prior had an album that was also spelt as an acronym with $3 signs. It was called Soul Sold Separately, and he used a cartoon rabbit on the cover art of that album and in a bunch of his music videos. That was basically like his brand avatar. Drake and PARTYNEXTDOOR also so happened to use a cartoon rabbit with the $3 signs for a lot of the album artwork for their latest project, and Freddie thought that was weird since Drake had told him he was a fan of that album. And we haven't even gotten to the main story yet, which is, Drake's weird collaboration on the Nokia record, which is the biggest record off that album. Before we get into that, isn't it a little strange that this was supposed to be a collaboration album with PARTYNEXTDOOR? While Drake was on tour, he's talking about the album, literally saying, I have an album on the way, not me and PARTYNEXTDOOR have an album on the way. And then the two biggest songs off that record, the one that they're pushing the most, Gimme a Hug and Nokia, both don't feature PARTYNEXTDOOR on the songs, in the music videos, the writing credits, nothing. But on Nokia, there is a writing credit that had gotten overlooked for a long time up until today. A writing credit that was a lot bigger than simply someone lending one line or a melody to the song. Nah, this was someone who concocted the entire backbone of the song. It's an artist by the name of Elkin. And don't get me wrong, again, I said we would defend Drake when we can here. This guy has expressed his appreciation for the collaboration with Drake, as any underground artist would, right? And when you look on the credits of the song, this artist is credited as a writer. But there's a couple suspicious things here. So firstly, did this guy make the beat? Did he do the hook? Did he create any of the parts that Drake ended up recording of the song? I ask these questions because this guy is not actually a visible feature when you look at the song on any streaming platform. Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, whatever the case is, it doesn't say Nokia featuring Elkin. It says Drake Nokia. And until today, it went pretty much under the rug that there was even another collaborator on this song. Yes, if you pay attention, you could obviously hear other vocals aside from Drake's on the record, most specifically on the hook. The guy who sings, is it Stacy? Is it Akademiks? Or the guy who sings Baby Girl? That's obviously, both those parts are not Drake, right? And funny enough, both those parts are the two catchiest, most memorable parts of the song. Those are the parts of the song that are going viral on TikTok. It's not Drake's verses, it's another dude. Now, why is this strange or even relevant if the guy is credited on the album and he did express his gratitude on social media for being part of the collaboration? Well, for a couple reasons, and mainly because it ties into the long history that Drake has of taking another artist's work, reworking it, and basically claiming it as his own. Now, again, to try and give Drake some defense here, Drake is a massive artist, right? So naturally, when he collaborates with a relatively unknown artist, most people will put the spotlight on the fact that it's a Drake song, a Drake collaboration, or whatever part Drake has of the song, because he's the much bigger artist, right? But there's this long line of history of Drake collaborating with these smaller artists and simply not giving them the proper recognition for the song. I mean, the most notable example is the fact that you don't see this guy's name on the title of the song, right? It doesn't say featuring Elkin. It says Nokia Drake. That's a problem in and of itself, because how are people going to go and try to find this guy, right? If this song ends up becoming the #1 hit in the country, which, funny enough, right now, the only song blocking it is Kendrick and SZA's song Luther, and next week it's predicted to go to #2 on the chart. So this Drake song could be the first song to replace Kendrick and SZA's song Luther at the #1 spot on the Billboard charts, since it hit the top of the Billboard charts over 7 weeks ago. But yeah, this massive hit, Drake's, comeback record since the beef, the most memorable part of it is featuring this artist that is simply kept in the shadows. Now, last Friday I got a message from this Instagram account titled mybad_Mr.Whole Foods. It was a video of Elkin, the producer and partial writer of the Nokia song, producing the song and actually singing the part that Drake ends up singing. This was a video that the Elkin artist posted to show, how proud he was of getting this Drake collaboration. So this guy sends it to me on Instagram, but when I go back and look today, all I see is my own message from Friday saying, "Thank you for this." So where'd the video go? Well. A couple days after he sent it to me, the video ended up gaining traction. I believe it was posted directly from Elkin's YouTube account. But again, when I went back to look for the message, it wasn't there in the chat. So he resent it to me and he said they officially deleted this video from YouTube. It doesn't exist anymore. I'm glad it got attention today. So what we can see is likely happening here is that many people caught on to this video of the producer of this song basically singing a whole part that Drake ended up singing on the final version. Basically, he created that part. He wrote that part. Drake just sang it. And now that it's getting traction online, for some reason, it was removed off YouTube. But again, shout out to this guy because he kept receipts. So this is what the artist by the name of Elkin originally created for the Nokia song. Does that sound familiar to you? Does that not sound exactly like the same intro that Drake sang on the final version of Nokia, where you did not see featuring Elkin? And we know he obviously sang the hook as well, and he did the entire beat. So what did Drake actually contribute to this song that was originally his? The verses, the one line where he says, "I'ma ice both of y'all out like Gretzky." And I see a lot of people online comparing this to Kendrick Lamar and Pharrell's collaboration, All Right, because if you guys didn't know, Pharrell was the producer of that song, and he also sang the hook. He said, "We gon' be alright." That part is Pharrell, but Pharrell is credited as the feature on that song. There's a big difference here. The part that Pharrell sings is the part that Pharrell wrote. But the part that Kendrick sings is the part that Kendrick wrote. When you know we've been hurt, we've been down before, whatever, like that whole chorus part that Kendrick sings, that is Kendrick's pen that wrote that. There's a very big difference here. And obviously we've seen this a million times with Drake, right? We know the whole Quentin Miller situation. I have a whole video touching on the history of Drake's different ghostwriters, right? On If You're Reading This Is Too Late, which is probably my favorite Drake album, there's about 10 songs on that project that weren't actually written by Drake. Legend, 10 Bands, Energy, Know Yourself, Preach, Wednesday Night, Company. I'm thinking off the top of my head right now. There's a bunch more. Used To, No Tellin'. We know that his mixtape, What a Time to Be Alive with Future, was a bunch of Future songs that were already recorded that Drake just slapped his vocals onto. We know that some of his biggest hits, Find Your Love, Just Hold On, We're Going Home, all of his R&B songs off of Take Care, those were written by either The Weeknd. Find Your Love, I believe, was written by Kanye. Hold On, We're Going Home was written by Majid Jordan. Best I Ever Had was written by Lil Wayne and this other artist by the name of Kia Shine. And I'm sorry, it was actually interpolated by a song that Lil Wayne and Kia Shine wrote. It wasn't directly written by them. We know, the whole McConan situation. We know the Migos situation. There's a laundry list of Drake hits that he takes credit for, that he doesn't put those other artists as the features on, but they directly had the main impact of that song. And there's much more to this Nokia story, but first, Lawbreeds and Gentlegrams, unlike Drake, a bunch of you guys have been telling me you've been Anita Max winning some free cash from playing mobile games, so I want to put all you guys on to something that almost seems too good to be true, alright? Let me give you a little glimpse into my life. When I'm not making this content for you guys, I have a disgusting addiction to my phone. My daily screen time is higher than Drake on that album cover, higher than Snoop off the edibles. So if you guys suffer that same addiction as me, I want to put you onto something that's going to change your life. FreeCash.com is a program that partners with mobile games that are looking for more users to play their games, and they will literally pay you to play their games for free. All you got to do is sign up using the QR code you see on the screen or using the link in the description of this video. You make an account super easy. All you got to do is put in your email, create a password, verify your email, and then you're good to go. And they got a bunch of games. My favorite is the Monopoly Go because we're always on the go trying to make some money. Once you make an account, you just click the game you want to play, follow the directions that they give you. The directions are super easy. Usually you just got to download the game and start playing. So it's about time you put that phone addiction to good use. Again, use the QR code you see on the screen or the link in my description. Create an account and you could start making more than $150 just to play a game on your phone. So another artist that Drake famously took from, which I'm going to have a whole documentary on coming very soon, because this deserves a whole story in and of itself, but the artist by the name of Drum. If you guys don't remember, Hotline Bling, summer 2015. So Meek Mill jumps out the gate, says that Drake is using ghostwriters. The whole world is up in flames about this, right? Drake drops back to back, distracts the public from those allegations against him. But a couple days before he releases back to back, on his OVO Sound radio show, he premieres a song called Hotline Bling / Cha-Cha Remix. Cha-Cha is a song by the artist by the name of Drum. Hotline Bling comes out in July. It's initially labeled as a Cha-Cha Remix. Back in May of that year, 2 months before, Drake is seen dancing to the song in a club. Again, I'm going to have a whole video documenting this entire story, but I say all this to say, Drake obviously knew this song. It was initially labeled as a remix because he took a lot of inspiration from that Cha-Cha song. Dram never got the proper credit. He ended up calling Drake out because Hotline Bling was ironically Drake's comeback hit after the beef with Meek Mill. After all those ghostwriting allegations tore up his reputation, he distracted the public with the Hotline Bling hit, which he ironically also took from Drum. Him and Drum get into an altercation years later. Drum calls him out. Drake has a record talking about, tried to bring the drum to me. He didn't know we cha-cha slide. He deleted the title as it being a cha-cha remix. So it was just Hotline Bling on its own. He completely took away any credit that he was initially giving to Drum, basically creating a hit off the backbone of another artist's record, a lesser known artist at that matter, and not giving them the proper credit. And we'll touch on Drum shortly because this ties back into Nokia, but I did say I would try to give Drake credit here. So I will give him credit on one thing, right? Drake is very good at taking another artist's song, or at least inspiration from another artist, and creating it into a hit of its own. Whether you could say that's biting, stealing, ghostwriting, whatever the case is, there's a lot of instances where he uses another artist's talent to create a hit. And you could pose the question, would that song be a hit if it wasn't Drake singing it, right? All those Quentin Miller records, 10 Bands, Rico, Energy, Know Yourself, would these be hits if it wasn't Drake performing them? And how much of a creative contribution did Drake have in the process of these records being created, right? When Quentin Miller was in the studio concocting these hits, was Drake writing them with him, or was it simply solely him? Drake's producer 40, after Meek Mill said that Drake uses ghostwriters, had claimed that he only saw Quentin Miller in the studio for about 30 minutes. So did Quentin Miller just come and drop off these songs and then Drake recorded them? Did Drake actually record with Quentin? Who knows? But I should do a Quentin Miller documentary as well. So drop a comment if you want that. But again, I bring all this up to say that Drake has a long history of taking these underground artist songs, using them for his own, and then not giving them the proper credit. So back to Drum, right? His comeback hit from that Meek Mill beef was Hotline Bling. That was initially a cha-cha remix. He took the whole sound, the melody, the vocal inflections, a lot from Drum's song Cha-Cha to make Hotline Bling. Again, would it have been as big of a hit if it wasn't Drake singing that song? Who knows? Who can say? The point is, he took a lot of inspiration from Drum, didn't give him the credit. So when his Sleepy Sexy Love Song album came out, Nokia was a very similar story, right? Dancey, nostalgic, retro type hit. Drake is singing, he's doing these catchy, viral type melodies and one-liners. Both songs are about cell phones. Hotline Bling being the comeback hit after the Meek Mill beef. Nokia being the comeback hit after the Kendrick beef. Already, we know that the largest viral part of that Nokia song wasn't actually concocted by Drake, right? If you want to talk the beat of the song, if you want to talk the choruses of the song, it's not just one, it's two, right? Because there's a whole beat switch in that song. Or if you want to talk the intro/bridge where Drake is going, you know, who's calling my phone, who's calling that stuff. None of that was written by Drake. None of that was initially sung by Drake. For all we know, Drake just copy-pasted his vocals onto it. But again, back to Drum. So the day that the Sexy Sleepy Lullaby Love Song album came out, Drum tweeted out an Apple Music link to one of his own songs and says, "Don't this sound familiar?" That song is called Feel Good. It features an eerily similar melody to the instrumental of Drake's song Nokia, similar to how Hotline Bling had a very, very similar melody to its instrumental and its hook to Drum's song Cha-Cha. And this got completely overlooked and overshadowed, likely due to the sad fact that Drum unfortunately didn't actually tweet a link where you can directly click and hear the song. It was a link that you had to copy paste. So a lot of people manually didn't do the work. And for that reason, a lot of people failed to realize that the entire sound of that Nokia record was something that Drum already did a couple months back in 2024. Now you have the fact that Drake stole a lot of the backbone of this song from a Drum song, and he had already stolen his last comeback hit, Hotline Bling, from a Drum song. The album cover for that album was ripped off of a local Toronto artist's visuals for one of his music videos. The title of that album was ripped off of Freddie Gibbs' album. And now people are finally realizing that the best part, or the most memorable part of that Nokia record, wasn't actually concocted by Drake. It was concocted by a completely separate artist who, yes, has a writing credit on the album, but doesn't actually have his name listed on the song. How is he supposed to get the recognition? I hate to compare it to Kendrick. I really hate, the Stan Wars or whatever you want to call them. But it's like, look at what Kendrick did on GNX, right? All of these lesser known West Coast artists, Hit a J3, AZ Chucky, Lefty Gunplay saying he now believes in God because of Kendrick Lamar, AZ Chucky getting a Warner Brothers record contract thanks to the success of his feature on GNX, and seeing Kendrick perform his feature on the Super Bowl stage, helping the song get a massive boost in sales. Meanwhile, Drake is here basically taking this underground artist's entire hit, which was a complete inspiration off a Drum song that nobody really knows about, and calling it his own. And this is not even to mention the fact that the entire music video was ripped off of the visuals of Kendrick Lamar's Super Bowl performance, his Not Like Us music video, and his N95 music video. I have a whole video breaking down the Nokia video and how a lot of it was biting the aesthetic, the look, the visuals, the outfits of different Kendrick performances and music videos. So all of this was bitten. What part had Drake actually written? Was it Drum or Quentin? Lawbreeze and Gentlegrams, listen, because there's more to this. Remember, we said we would try to give Drake some grace in this video, at least tell, the story, the full story for how it is and what every party has to say. But remember, when you're involved in a record this big, like especially when it's coming from an artist like Drake, you got to do everything to make sure your relationship with that artist remains intact. That's why all the OV hoes go back to the days when The Weeknd would, shout out Drake on stage, show him a lot of love, even though the fact was Drake stole a bunch of Weeknd songs that were supposed to be on his album and put them on Take Care. The Weeknd would air out those frustrations years later when he wasn't contractually tied to Drake. But some of these artists can't say anything, right? Look at PARTYNEXTDOOR. He got shafted from two of the biggest songs off that recent album that they did together. That was supposed to be a collaboration project. PARTYNEXTDOOR is missing from the music video and the songs themselves of the two biggest records off the project. Drake is out at shows saying he has a new album coming out, not him and PARTYNEXTDOOR, but PARTYNEXTDOOR still has to put on a poker face, pretend like he's appreciative, and play these songs even though he's not on them during his concert set list. Again, he's signed to Drake, right? So he is financially incentivized to only speak highly of Drake. It would not look very good for him if he didn't. And it's a very similar story to the creator, basically, of the Nokia song, Elkin, right? Who did the beat, who did the hook, who did the intro and the bridge. Naturally, this guy is happy that his art is getting recognized on a massive platform and a major artist like Drake is giving him recognition, right? As he should be. Again, you should obviously demand what you're due, right? It should say featuring Elkin on that song, but it is what it is. So to give his side of the story, or at least his manager's side of the story, his manager reacted to a tweet that said Elkin, producer of Nokia by Drake, got his mom a present after the track's success and is living life. Love to see it. Hope he gets more great opportunities. This guy is apparently his manager, who reacted saying, "Oh, we're not done." And he kept going saying, Drake also helped Elkin with the structure and arrangement of the song, which would technically make Drake a producer on it. LOL. Let's just keep winning. So essentially, this was in response to someone saying that, Drake just basically stole that whole song. This guy is emphasizing, no, Drake actually helped with the structure and arrangement of the song, which I do believe Drake did, right? Elkin probably had the beat and the hook and the intro and probably a reference or a skeleton of the song concocted, and Drake was like, all right, let's do this beat switch, let's put this hook here, let's put that verse here. He probably helped with the overall structure of it, right? While you could say that would make Drake a producer of the song, this doesn't mean this is actually Drake's song, right? The backbone of this song was not Drake. But this alleged producer of the song continues saying, I hope they know that Drake literally wrote the hook with Elkin, and then putting his backing vocals was done by design. Here he's referencing, Elkin's vocals, right? Like the baby girl, let me see you do you dance and twirl. Like that was Elkin, that wasn't Drake. But they call these backing vocals, and I could be wrong, but to me this doesn't sound like backing vocals. This sounds like the entire hook of the actual song, right? Obviously, it's Drake and Elkin going back and forth. The baby girl part, and then the, is that your bestie? I'ma ice both of y'all out like Gretzky. That part was Drake, but it was a back and forth. And the is it Keisha, is it Akademiks, like that part of the song, that was also Elkin, and Drake had background vocals on that hook. That was Elkin's hook, and it was Drake's backing vocals on that part of the song. It wasn't Elkin's backing vocals. Elkin was not a backing artist or a background artist on this song. He damn near sung and wrote the entire hook. But again, of course, when you're getting this type of major look, you have to make sure that you're on damage control at all times, right? If the world is coming out and saying, oh, wait, no, this sounds like way too familiar to what Drake sang. Like this Elkin guy basically created this whole song. Drake stole it. Obviously, Elkin's management team has to come out and say, no, we're very grateful for the opportunity. Elkin and Drake worked together. But even through his defense, even through his messaging, you could see that Elkin had the biggest hand in this song. He made the beat and he made the hook, and Drake just arranged the overall structure of the vocals. Now, I'm seeing a lot of celebrating from the OV hoes over the recent success of this song, right? Which is great. Like, it's cool to see that, even though, let's be real, Drake did not write the majority of the song, he did take a risk with the song. It does sound different from a lot of the, darker, more monotone R&B cuts off this album and a lot of the stuff that Drake has been doing recently. It sounds more inspired. It sounds more lively. And I'm not mad to see Drake songs at the top of the charts, right? Drake is the hit guy. I expect Drake to be at the top of the charts. And I'm very impressed that he was able to get a hit after this type of damage that Kendrick put to his reputation. But it's still cool to see, and it's very cool to see that Luther is still at the top of the charts, blocking this song from getting to that peak position. But Drake's fan base has went from being probably predominantly women to being predominantly conspiracy theorists who think that because he's suing his record label, there's now this grand conspiracy to take him down, to blackball him, to suppress him from the charts, and to artificially boost the numbers of Kendrick songs so that Kendrick can be at the top of the charts. That's why you're getting this whole K-bot narrative. That's why you're getting all these people saying Kendrick is botting his music. So of course, we gotta debunk that, right? So recently, after Drake's lawsuit, and it wasn't because of Drake's lawsuit, it was just the timing worked out this way. Maybe it was thanks to, the pressure Drake was putting. I don't know. But Spotify recently eliminated a lot of botted streams off of different music from their platform, right? Spotify is very susceptible to bots compared to Apple Music. A bot is essentially a fake stream. It's a device that's just playing the song on repeat, so you get a bunch of these fake streams, makes the success of the song look bigger. Kendrick has been accused of botting Not Like Us. That was one of the parts of Drake's lawsuit. However, we'll see by April 16th, but by then, Drake has to file a new complaint where his legal team is allegedly planning on taking out the botting allegation from the lawsuit completely, aka Drake's team realized they have no proof that Kendrick actually botted Not Like Us, or UMG specifically botted Not Like Us, so they can't actually include that in the lawsuit. So remember now, and again, we'll touch on it back in April 16th when this new complaint comes out, but Drake is allegedly planning on removing that claim from the lawsuit that Kendrick was botting the song. At the same time, Spotify removed bots off of songs that had fake streams on them. None of Kendrick's music was affected. Not one single Kendrick stream had been removed off any of his records. None of the numbers had changed. None of them had decreased, actually. They only increased. AKA, when Spotify did their check to see if any of the streams on any of these artists were faked, were botted, none of Kendrick's songs were affected. So he had no bots on them. Now, at the same time, Kendrick has been breaking multiple records for being the most listened to rapper of all time on Spotify, having the highest number of monthly listeners. This has made the OVHO conspiracists very jealous because they're saying, how could Kendrick be the most listened to rapper? Drake used to hold that title. Drake's songs have more streams than Kendrick's, but it works very differently, right? Monthly listeners is attributed to how many new users and how many previous users are coming to actually check out this person's music. It's not attributed to how many total streams that artist has on all their songs. Drake has a lot more songs than Kendrick. Drake has a lot bigger pop hits than Kendrick from the past. Drake's catalog has more streams than the entire 60s, 70s, and 80s decade combined. So yes, Drake's back catalog is getting more streams than Kendrick's. It's also way bigger than Kendrick's. However, in terms of people continuously checking out both artists, Kendrick had over 100 million monthly listeners and Drake had around 70 million. We know Kendrick got a lot of new monthly listeners from the Super Bowl, right? 130 million people watched that thing. Tons of new eyeballs, tons of new monthly listeners. That made sense. The OVHO conspiracy theorists chalked that up to there being bots. Now, coincidentally, because Spotify had removed botted streams off the songs, even though Kendrick's were not affected, the OVHO conspiracies are trying to tie the fact that Kendrick's monthly listeners are going down to the fact that Spotify removed botted streams off their platform. Again, none of Kendrick's songs were affected. None of his songs were botted, as far as we know. But Kendrick saw a massive spike in monthly listeners from the success of the Super Bowl performance, which is only natural, right? He hit a peak of 110 monthly listeners, and the highest peak before that was around 80 million monthly listeners for any rapper. So he beat that by 30 million monthly listeners. That was from the Super Bowl. It's only natural that that starts going down months after the Super Bowl already ended. So Kendrick went from 110 monthly listeners to 98 monthly listeners over the last few weeks after the buzz of the Super Bowl died down, which again is very natural. A lot of artists' monthly listeners fluctuate, but the OVHO conspiracy theorists are trying to tie that to the fact that Spotify removed bots from their platform, basically saying Spotify removes the bots, now Kendrick's monthly listeners go down. This is all cap, but of course the propaganda machine Akademiks TV had to publish this out saying Kendrick went from 110 monthly listeners down to 98 monthly listeners after the recent Spotify purge of bots. Drake hasn't changed. It was 78 million before Spotify started deleting bots and stayed 70 million after. Drake's daily streams are also peaking at 50 million, whereas Kendrick's is at 38 million. Kendrick has 98 million monthly listeners, but only 38 million streams daily. Looks like Spotify has a lot more bots to delete. Now, I basically debunked this in the last 5 minutes, but I think I gotta reiterate because Big Mac of Akademiks keeps mentioning this in his live streams, on his Twitter, etc. So essentially, again, there's a difference between the total number of streams you're getting on a daily basis and your monthly listeners. Monthly listeners is how many people are actually checking out your profile, listening to your music. Total streams is just the total amount that all of your songs have been streamed. Kendrick's total streams did not change from Spotify deleting bots, aka no users and no listens on his music were deemed as fake. The dip in his monthly listeners was due to the fact that the Super Bowl saw him have his peak, and after that, he's starting to slowly decline. He's still 20 million monthly listeners ahead of Drake, which is why they're trying to create these conspiracies, because it looks bad that Kendrick has so many more monthly listeners than Drake, essentially. Even with this massive Nokia song, he still can't hit the #1 of the Billboard because Luther is there blocking it. Even with that massive song, he still has 20 million less monthly listeners than Kendrick does right now. Now, because they couldn't attack the streaming side of things, of course, the OVHO conspiracy theorists had to go on to the radio play, right? Because that was another accusation Drake made in the lawsuit, that UMG allegedly participated in payola, basically paying radio stations to illegally play Not Like Us at absurd rates, paying them under the table to do so. And they're saying that, Luther is only a successful hit because it's being abused on the radio stations, even though the lawsuit was about Not Like Us. It wasn't about Luther, but they're trying to pin this on Luther as well, and basically saying Drake is being blocked from that #1 spot for his song Nokia because Luther is being abused with fake radio spins. But this Twitter account by the name of Lip Predictions actually disproved this entire theory. because Billboard basically counts three things when they tally up, who's the number one on the charts, who's number two, etc. It's basically streams, the total number of streams, the total number of sales, so how many fans, went on iTunes and bought the song, and then radio play, how many times it was actually spinned on the radio. Nokia is a very new song. Songs take a long time to actually climb up the charts on radio. Radio is a lot slower than streams, because streams, you just go on Spotify, you listen to the song. Radio, the song has to get worked, it has to get requested. It slowly climbs up the charts. It's not as quickly as streams. That's why you see a lot of older songs on the top of the radio charts. Songs like Shabuzi's a bar song, right? That song was released over a year ago. It's still at the top of the charts on the Billboard because it's getting tons of radio play. Radio moves a lot slower than streams. But again, this Twitter account, Lip Prediction, showed that even without the radio play, Luther would still be at number one because it's getting more streams on a daily basis than Nokia. So you can't do the whole radio tactic saying that's the only reason why Kendrick is number one, because he's still beating Drake on the streaming side of things. You could see here, they said, since everyone thinks the Hot 100 is a radio-controlled chart, I removed everyone's airplay, radio play, just to show you that the number one song would have remained the same all these weeks even without radio play. And you see that Luther is still at number one, and Nokia is about 6 points behind at number two. Can Nokia end up beating out Luther? 100%, right? Nokia is a newer song. Luther is already 3-4 months old. It's already spent 7 weeks at number one, and it's going to probably spend another 8th week there, blocking Nokia from getting that number one spot next week. Can Nokia replace it? Yes. And would that be, extremely fitting, considering these are the two guys who have been battling for the crown for the last year? One's replacing the other one on the chart? Yes, that would be very funny. But what's even funnier? The fact that when Drake's Sleepy Sexy Lullaby Love Song album came out, GNX, a 3-month-old album, actually blocked it from topping the charts because he sold a bunch of vinyls after the week of the Super Bowl strategically. GNX has been beating out Sleepy Sexy Love Songs on the charts for the last 4 or 5 weeks since that album came out. Kendrick, whether you like it or not, has been dominating the charts with that GNX album, and if there was really bots involved, then Spotify would have already removed them. They removed a bunch of bots on other songs. We didn't see anything happen to Kendrick's. If it was really up to radio play, then why would Luther still be number one just off the strength of its streams alone? I'm a professional OV-ho conspiracy theorist disprover. Thank you for tuning into my TED Talk. Let me know if you guys think that Drake bit a lot of that Nokia song, if he deserves to go number one, if he deserves to credit the actual artist that wrote the backbone of that song, and I will catch you guys in the next one.